all the way down here in San Antonio Bay, South Shoreline, headed down toward Panther, Panther Point, Panther Lake, Swan Little Lake back in there, all the way down to Cedar Lake. All this area in here. Still have lots of water in our system, uh, so it really opens up lots of areas for us. If you are a top water junkie, make sure the next time that you are on the water, whenever that may be, that you have one tied on to a particular rod that you like to throw a top water with, and make sure that that action is ready to go. Top water activity has been on the uptick. It's been very good. It's been very consistent. Lots of opportunities. Get to lots of blow ups, get lots of takes. Redfish, trout, primarily been pretty aggressive attacking that bait. Now, is it consistent? No, it's not consistent. Every cast or every opportunity you get, you may have to cast several times. But if you're a true topwater junkie, you're going to chunk it no matter what. You're going to keep chunking and keep chunking and keep chunking until you get the desired result. And that's pretty much what we've been doing for the most part, working a lot of these outer edges, working in these back lakes. Get down here in Cedar, those areas like that, even slid down to Twin. Again, these big old long runs coming out of St. Charles or Copano Bay Bridge area, but still, with the amount of water we have, it just opens up a lot of these back lakes and lots of these areas back there, and it gives you those opportunities with the top water amongst the other baits that you throw as well. But we've really just kind of focused, at least down in this area here, back here in the lake and everything, back in that area there like that. Just really throwing topwater. Somebody have a topwater tournament. Not everybody had one on, but at least one in our group, however many we had in a group, somebody had one tied on and stuck with it for 2 or 3 hours. And there was lots of great opportunities that happened from that. Lots of great action with that. Just big blow-ups, chasing, popping it all the way back. And it's just a lot of fun to watch it take place. And, of course, if you're close by and you've got a plastic tied on, you can throw in it right behind it. And most of the time you would get hooked up with whatever that particular fish was, or if there was another fish that was hanging in and around that particular area that was kind of watching all the activity go on. So, but that said, that's as we get, as we're heading through the end of September here and we're fixing to get into October, make sure you have a topwater tied on at all times if you like to throw those. If you don't, then don't worry about it. But if you really want to see a lot of fun and have a lot of action with a topwater bite, have one of those suckers tied on, because, man, it has been spectacular for the most part. And it's just kind of really turned on here in as far as the action that we have had has really turned on probably about the last 4 or 5 days. It's been very good like that, just really, really aggressive like that. And, of course, and it doesn't, coincidentally that we're in a new moon phase right now as well. So that's another factor that goes into that. So that helps. We get back here in Shell Reef Bayou, and we get back here in Cottonwood Bayou, and we fish all these back here. And it's a great area to throw your topwater back in here. I would suggest, if you're going to, or if you have one of those on, get you some single hooks and put on there, because there's a lot of floating grass in these back lakes right now too. So you have to contend with that. If you're going to leave trebles on there, you're going to have to pull grass off on every cast. So just prepare yourself to do that and don't get frustrated, because that's what's going on. But put you some single hooks in there. That'll alleviate a lot of that area and a lot of that type of thing that goes on with the topwater bait. But again, on the flip side of that, when you go to single hooks, your hookup ratio does go down. So, proceed however you wish. It doesn't bother me to pull grass off. I want to give myself the best opportunity to catch fish on the topwater bait, just because it's fun. I just like to watch those fish attack that bait, and it's really a lot of fun to watch it take place. We've been, again, with the water and stuff that's coming here with that last system that Helene, I think it was, that blew through and hit Florida over there. We're still getting a lot of water from that. Now, at some point, that water's probably going to drop out, but there is another little system that's kind of cruising and hanging out down there below the Yucatan, so we may not lose our water. That water may stay in here because of that system. We'll have to wait and see what goes on with that, and that will reveal itself in the next several days. If it's going to continue to push upwards or push into the Gulf, and if it does push into the Gulf, you'll continue to see those higher tides than what we normally would have without a hurricane or some type of system, low pressure like that would be in play. Also, the other baits that we have been throwing in these areas off of these points and grass lines and shorelines, because like I said, they've been lighting up, and a lot of the fish have been pushed right up against that grass line. So that's been our primary areas that we've kind of worked on. But plastics have been great. We've been throwing the burner shads. We've been throwing the original size. Been throwing the supermodels. Been throwing the big smooth. We've thrown the knocking tails, mirror lure little johns. We've thrown the double D's. We've thrown the soft dines. We've thrown coastal brew baits, marker 54. We've put everything, all the things in our arsenal, man. We've been chunking it, and we've caught fish on a lot of different things. The one particular flavor that has been consistent over the last probably 8 to 10 days has been the bone diamond and white ice. Those two flavors, and no matter what bait you throw them in, as long as you got that formula as far as that color pattern, you're going to consistently catch fish on it. And that's just shown itself no matter what. Topwater bite, as long as it's got a white or gray belly, you've been fine. Doesn't matter what the top side of it is. But in our plastics, we've thrown a lot of different colors in the plastics, but the one thing that's been very consistent, white ice and bone diamond right now. And I would imagine that will continue to stay that way as we progress into October. So whatever you have, whatever you like to throw, however you like to throw it, whatever plastic that is, size-wise, tie it on, put it on your jig head, and chunk that. That's gonna give you your best option, or your best opportunity to catch fish consistently. You can tie on other things if you like a particular color based on what the water clarity is. I get it, and that's fine. But those two flavors have been very good for us. Majors and minors, we've worked, been very consistent during those time frames. So just pay attention to what your tides are and make sure you don't get caught up somewhere. Maybe one of these back lakes, you're trying to find you a little pot of redfish or trout or whatever snook up back in there. And just make sure that the water doesn't drop out on you unexpectedly. So just make sure you keep an eye on those things first thing in the mornings. Paul's Mott, Long Reef Bend. I talked about Paul's Mott last week, but this week we kind of worked in Long Reef Bend all the way up to Jaybird, back lakes around Jaybird, back lakes in Sherman, all the way down into Spalding. Again, man, we've got so much water in here right now. If you're not back lake fishing right now, you're not doing yourself any favors whatsoever. There's lots of great opportunities in these back lakes with the amount of water. When the water really pushes up, and we've had it for a little while now, really for just unusually, but we've had these systems push into our Gulf, so that allows that water system. But of course, we had a big moon about 10 days ago as well, so that pulled some water in here with that, along with the low pressure system like a hurricane. So it gives you more water in a longer period of time. So when that happens, these back lakes really become alive. So you can go back in there and you can spend a long time in these back lakes wading these things, wading the shoreline, wading out in the middle of them, whatever you like to do, however you like to approach it, and it gives you opportunities. Again, the topwater bite in these back lakes and these shoreline areas have been very good. We've worked a lot of these different areas all back in here. Some of these areas a little difficult to get to, especially if you're not familiar how to work around in some of these back lakes, but they're all interconnected. And they're really good. So, we like to work all this. And then, of course, the outside. The outside against the shoreline's been very good as well. Trout's been good there. We've caught redfish that's on the outside of that. And we've worked all these mouths, worked the guts that go back into all these little back lakes, all back in these areas like that. They've been very good, very consistent for us. Now, if every fish that we caught been of quality, no, but we're catching fish, and that's what you want. You want to consistently be able to catch fish back in these areas, and if you're not doing that, you're going to move on. But one thing to remember, when you're catching fish back in these areas on a consistent basis, there are quality fish that are hanging in and around these particular areas, so you can't lose your patience just because you're not catching the style or type of fish that you want. There's good slot reds that are back in there, and there's undersized reds in there, and there's good slot trout that are back in some of these areas, and you catch some quality trout too. We've pulled out some very nice PBs in some of these back lakes and shorelines in some of these areas back here. So it's been very worthwhile to get back there. You catch a nice personal best trout, it's in that upper 20s. That'll make your day right there, man. I can tell you that for sure. And that's a great thing. Redfish and the slots have been most of the redfish that we've caught have been in the mid slots, 23, 25s, and that's good. That's a good fish, especially if you're looking for box fish. That's a really good fish to have. Get you a good fillet off of that, or a good side half shell if you so choose. And if you're keeping trout, we're catching some, mid-slot 17s to 19s, and those are good sized trout as well. Again, a lot of these fish are hanging over the harder packed stuff, and some of these back lakes are not hard packed. They're a little squishy, but there's a lot of grass, a lot of bait. So we're probably not far away from having a bait migration. Once we start getting some cool fronts pushing down through here, that will take place. That probably not going to take place until we get into October, unless we get a surprise cold front here right at the end of September. I don't see that taking place. But if so, you can kind of anticipate that. So right now, take advantage of all this extra water, all the water in the back lakes, and a lot of the bait that's hanging around in there. Because just about any back lake you go into, you're going to have plenty of bait that's hanging in there. So again, the same baits I talked about. We're still throwing 16th ounce jig head, because most of those back lakes are hanging around, upper thigh, waist deep water, which is really nice for back lake areas. So you can kind of fish it two ways. If you don't want to get out of the boat and you can drift it, you can. I would suggest that you weight it, because that's the best way to approach it. It's very thorough. You're very surgical when you do it weighting wise, so you're not going to miss any opportunities at a fish unless you just greyhound through it. So again, patience. Just take your time with it. Work the majors and minors. Pay attention to what your tides are doing. Weather has been spectacular over the last 10 days. And I don't see for any reason for it to change unless there's a system that's coming that we don't see. So if you're able to get out on the water in the next week or so, make sure that you do and take full advantage of it. Down here in Port Bay, this area down here on the shoreline, again, with all the extra water in here that we've gotten, it's been pretty good. You're able to work right up against the shoreline there, all the way down, all the way around the point, like you go back toward the 188 kayak launch area there. And if you're able to fish back in there, if you don't have a boat that's got a big high center console on it, get underneath that 188 bridge, and get on the other side of what's also considered Port Bay, on the other side of the bridge, and get over there. There's been redfish and black drum hanging out back in there that we've caught. Now, the one thing you got to remember back in there, if you're going to wade that, you got plenty of shoreline back there, you got some back lakes, but it's pretty squishy on that side. So just take that in consideration. So if you don't want to contend with that, you may want to stay in the boat. But it is pretty soft back in there, knee deep in some spots, but it's still fishable, and we've caught fish back in there. So, and anyway, we've come back around. We've worked all this shoreline here in front of Sundown Bay area, that development, and of course the big sandy bar that comes all the way out, grass scattered over that, and all this big sandbar that's been in here all the way back down to an Italian bend. Been throwing, again, topwater bait. Has been really good for us. Very aggressive bite toward that. And again, we're in a new moon, which is favorable. Best 10 days of the month. Make sure that you can get out there and get an opportunity to get on that. Again, with the amount of water that we got in our system, it's lighting up a lot of these areas that we haven't had some fish in a little bit. But with the time that we've had more water hanging in here, it's been very good for us. We'll work this back shoreline here in Italian Bend and all this here, and then you've got some more back lake mouths that are around here on the Italian Bend. You can wade back in some of these back lakes if you want and do that. But the one thing that you got to remember, it gets a little soft back in that just a minute. Again, just like over in the other Port Bay on the side of the bridge, what do you want to contend with? Do you want to deal with that or not? So you may want to stay on your boat to do that as well, but it's an opportunity back in there. Great topwater location. You can throw back in there. You get some opportunities, some big blow-ups, big stuff that's happening. Of course, then we come back around. We've worked all back up here into Pete's Bend, back there by the old Redfish Lodge. It used to be there out in front of the Redfish Lodge. It's all this area back here toward Copano Ridge has been pretty decent for us as well. Been throwing the plastics along with the topwater. I know I've been kind of pushing the topwater bait here on this particular set of videos, but the plastics we've been throwing, again, like I mentioned earlier, the Bone Diamond and White Ice have been the most productive for us in any of the brands down south. Knock and Tail, Mirror Lure, Marker 54, and also Coastal Brew has been another one. Coastal Brew, the main two ones that I've thrown with Coastal Brew, I don't know all their flavors. But it's a really good bait. It's got great action on their bait. They're relatively new on the market and came back out. I think late spring is when they rolled out their stuff. Could be wrong, and it may have been sooner. I don't remember the timeline. But anyway, Vanilla bean and nuke juice have been two of their flavors that I've personally thrown. Have been very pleasantly surprised with their production. They have a white version as well. That's kind of why I throw the vanilla beans. But those flavors, anything in white, whether it be pearl, the ice color, have been very productive in all these estuaries. Whether you're fishing in Copano, whether you're fishing in St. Charles, San Antonio, Mesquite, Aransas, Carlos, it don't matter. The white ice back lakes, it's all been that white flavor, that variety, that shade of white has been very good and very productive. So if you don't have any of those in your box, make sure that you get some and put in your box and have it available to you. Majors and minors, figure out a day that you can get a major or minor worked into your fishing day and make sure that that's happening, that you can incorporate your time frame with that so that takes place. Again, lots of the water that's in here right now is from Big Moon that we had about 10 days ago, and the hurricane system came through, and then there's another system that's down below the Yucatan. Keep an eyeball on that and see what's going on with that. But enjoy the time that we have right now. Our weather's been really good. Fishing's really starting to pick up as far as action goes, and I don't see that to really kind of die off anytime soon. So if you have an opportunity this week to get out there and enjoy it.